Welcome back to the Wolff Den, presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Matt LaPorta to the Den. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me on. I think that's got to be one of the best intros, that you had up on there that I've seen in a long time. That was great.
I still got to work on it, but it's not bad. I think we could do better, but not a bad start. Great to have you on here. Excited, as people might be able to tell from my attire today. We'll talk a little bit about Gator baseball, but here to talk about finance and a ton of other things. For the people in the audience who don't know who you are, what's a quick intro, and then we'll get to it.
Yeah, Matt LaPorta. I went to the University of Florida. I was there during the golden era, right, where we had a lot of championships. So 04 through 07. Great basketball teams, and football and baseball, we were pretty solid too. But I played baseball there at UF, went on to play professionally, played in the Olympics, and now, live in the Tampa area with my wife, who was a UF athlete as well. She was a pole vaulter, and our 4 kids.
4 kids, wow. That's
that's why I got gray hair.
Well, I was just actually with I have a twin brother who I was telling you, he went to UF also, and he has 4 kids, and we're the same age, and I got a little gray here and not much up there, and he's loaded with grays. So
yes,
I didn't say it. I'm just putting the facts out there.
Yeah.
It's great though, right? I mean, it's to have kids and be able to see them. We'll talk more about the sports, because you are at such a high level, and probably watching them play sports. It's I was watching my friend's son's baseball game, and my niece cheering for a peewee football. It's just fun to watch at that age.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is. It's fun to watch them as they develop and they kind of come into their own, and really start to enjoy whatever sport they're doing, and kind of lean into it.
Well, whenever I have someone who's achieved the high level that you have, I always like to start, find out where it started. Everyone plays Little League. At what point did you figure we might have something here?
That's a great question. I think for me, I love baseball. I always loved baseball from the time I was 5 years old, dragging a bat around. People would throw balls and I'd hit them. But I remember, as a kid, I grew up, I played every sport, basketball, soccer. I was a state champion in BMX before BMX was cool, right? And I'd never played football growing up until I got to high school. But, I realized also very quickly that I wasn't really, I was a decent athlete, but soccer, the running, I wasn't cut out for that. And basketball, I couldn't make a layup to save my life. I couldn't dribble, I could play defense. So you start to realize, okay, you're better at some things than others, right? We all have our gifts and talents, and I don't know. So I was probably 9, 10, 11. All I ever wanted to do was play in the big leagues. I just loved baseball. And I was probably about 12 years old, and my dad, and this is kind of where it clicked for me. My dad was like, "Look, hey, you're good right now." I'm like, "Yeah, I am. I'm one of the best in Little League." And he was like, "Well, everybody's going to catch you, right? Because you don't work hard at it. You just come out here and you play, which is fine. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But if you want to make it to the big leagues, you have to work at it." And from that point on, I just was, as nobody's going to outwork me. That was my mentality. And I just always believed that I could get to the big leagues, no matter how crazy it was, when I'd share it with somebody, and people would be like, "Yeah, okay, cool. Good luck with that." And I mean, you look back and you go, yeah, I was probably nuts for saying that. But I think that insanity, if you will, is what helped me get, to that level.
Somebody told me, I see this online. It was like, when you tell someone your dreams, if they don't tell you you're crazy, then you're not dreaming big enough.
Yeah.
And that's sort of exactly what you just said. But obviously you start to play, you make it to the University of Florida to play. And at that point, it probably feels like less of a crazy dream.
No,
Not from the day one, but obviously we don't have to go through your whole thing. You become an All-American, get to play on an Olympic team. I mean, at some point you realize I'm pretty close. I mean, there's plenty of people get drafted too. There's also a difference between being drafted and making it to the big leagues that people don't understand. And you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. And one thing I'll go back to is I know that there's a lot of people out there. This is something that I like to speak on. So I remember I was a freshman in high school and teacher made us write a paper, our English teacher, about what you wanted to do when you got older. And I wrote a paper about being a Major League Baseball player. And that's what I wanted to do. And basically the teacher didn't grade it. She was like, you got to redo this because that's not realistic. And, in a lot of ways, it was like shame on her for kind of trying to kill somebody's dream. But also, I would encourage people that if you do have that dream, stand by your dream. Don't let somebody tell you can't do it. And I remember I never turned that paper in. I said, I'm not redoing it. I'm not going back on what I believe.
That's to go back to that. I mean, that really is shame on the teacher. You're not saying something that is impossible. It's unlikely if you're talking about numbers wise, but so is a lot of things that we do. And we should always encourage people to do and be whatever they want to be, not like, hey, I want to be a flying unicorn.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I say that too. And, everybody's like, oh, you got to have a plan B. And I think as a successful person in life, sometimes if you have that plan B, you have this crutch where you're like, oh, I've got plan B, I'll go back, versus going, I've only got plan A and this is all I have right now. And I think it's important for people to understand to have a level of success that they want to have in life. I'm not saying you can't have a plan B. I'm not saying you can't even have a plan A that's a plan A too, right? Like that runs parallel with what you're doing. But I do believe that to have that kind of success, you've got to have a singular goal in mind. So anyway, I didn't mean to sidetrack us there. It was just something that popped in my head.
No, I think there's a guy, Matt Higgins, on LinkedIn. I don't know if you know him. I think he's been on Shark Tank before, and he has something called Burn the Boats. I haven't read the book, but it's basically about going all in on plan A. And I think, certainly there are times when you might need a plan B, but for the stuff you're talking about, and even in my case with Ticket Time Machine, like it's plan A, there is no plan B until I need to go to plan B.
That's right.
That's the big issue, is trying to figure out, when do I need to go to plan B? When is plan A not feasible or a lot less likely? Not like trying to play the lottery and say, I'm going to worry about, hey, that's my plan A. Hey, I'm going to win the lottery. So I think the important part is trying to figure out, when do you need, because I can switch to plan B and feel like I'm okay. I don't need like this long time to figure it out. So that's the key. That's a real big piece of it, is trying to figure out when is. But I think I'm all in. I think going all in on what you want, if it's attainable.
Yeah. I think, too, I don't know what I was listening to, or I read it or something. It was interesting. The example was, you got this donkey, and to the left of the donkey, 10 steps away is a bucket of water. And then to the right of the donkey, you have this bucket of food. Well, sometimes, like we as people, and this example was the donkey, you don't make any move, right? Like you just kind of stay in this stagnant area. And because you're like, well, I could do this and I could do that, versus just going, I'm going to just go all in on this. And if the donkey just went all in on the water and got its water to drink, right, it could easily walk over and go get the food. Yeah. Right. And so I think it's just that picture of trying to go all in on the one thing that you think you're going to have success at. And to your point, Matt, I think as time goes, you do get to a point where you're like, all right, maybe it's time to transition to something else, or you've had enough success. Now I can still transition into something else. I can start diversifying some of my time or some of my assets in another area.
Yeah, and some of that is how, and this will go right good into finance talk, is how risk averse you are with your own destiny and your livelihood. Is that I posted the other day on LinkedIn that, if you're not making mistakes and failing, then you're not taking enough risks. You're just kind of taking that easy road to it. And so I think that all kind of ties together with what you want to be in life. At any point when you were decided you want to be a ball player, and then after your playing days when you decided what you wanted to do as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think those risks and failures reveal a lot about who we are as a person, can reveal the next thing that we should be doing. Like I said, going back when I was a young kid, I played baseball, soccer, basketball, BMX, right? And football. And you start going through and you go, "Well, I'm not really good at this one. I'm not really so good at this one either. And here's why." And I think those failures kind of start to refine you in who you are. And here's the things that I really am good at, because I've already figured out here's the things I'm not good at. And so I think those things help.
Well, that's interesting too. When if we're talking about baseball and Little League baseball or even travel baseball, a lot of times your parents, who are your biggest supporters, will maybe make it seem like you're better than you are. You have to try and get someone who can really tell you, hey, this is how good you are, and this is how good you need to be to get where you need to go. It's a lot more competitive now with all the different leagues and tournaments that they have out there. What was it for you that said, I'm good enough? Like before you ever got, let's say, a letter from Gators asking you to come, when you said, I'm at least going to make the next level. I'm going to be a college baseball player.
Yeah, it was always challenging for me. I never felt like I was good enough until I was good enough. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would break home run records in high school, but there would be somebody else that's in another, wherever, Mississippi or, somewhere else, that was ranked higher or doing better or predicted to be drafted higher out of high school. And so I always felt like if I wasn't the number one, I was not going to make it. Which is not necessarily reality, but it is a slim chance. Like, if you aren't the best, it's hard to make it in baseball. So I always played like that. Like, I've got something to prove. I need to, keep doing well.
Yeah, I want to talk a ton about baseball, but I want to focus on what you're doing now, and because it's real interesting, the dynamics of the athlete today and what it was maybe when you kind of retired, because now everyone's already thinking about how can I make more money, or transition into my after sports life almost as they're playing. How did that work for you as you were playing, to figure out what you were going to do after you were done?
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate. I always knew I wanted to be in some finance capacity. But getting into private equity is not easy to do. There's a typical traditional path to go do that, and I'm talking about the private equity, the space that I'm in, which is buying companies in the lower middle market, right? Doing leverage buyouts. I'm not talking venture deals or growth equity or real estate. It's, we focus on buying operating businesses that have been around 30, 40 years. The founders generally retirement age, and just they don't want to grow it anymore, but we see a lot of potential in that. And so we go in and optimize the business and professionalize it. We put leverage on it, and we look to grow it and then have an exit in 3 to 5 years.
What's the number on those companies?
As far as
value?
I mean, it ranges. I mean, we could be looking at anything from, 20 million in revenue to 150, 200 million in revenue. So it just depends on, a number of different things. Depends on what industry it is, what multiple they're going to get. So, again, the cycle where they're at in their company. But it's a fascinating space, and it's a space that takes, a little bit of time to understand, versus you have venture where you venture, there's not a lot of money being made quite yet, right? Or positive cash flow, I should say. Right. There is money being made, but there might not be positive cash flow. And so you're really betting on that founder. You're betting on the concept of that idea. And that's where I think you see a lot of athletes get into right now, because it's easy to get into it, right? Like venture is a little bit easier in some ways. I'm not discrediting what they do, but in some ways it's a little easier to pick, right? Because in that world, you're trying to find kind of, you've got to have a system, right? Like a bucket of, here's my bucket of venture deals. I've got whatever it is, 10 or 20 of them, and they all have the same allocation. And I know out of that 10 or 20, maybe only two to four are going to hit. Well, you know, in the lower middle market buyout space that I'm in, if only 2 or 4 hit, I've got problems, right? Like nobody's going to want to invest with us. And so, but again, I'll go back to, you know, I got lucky. One of my really good friends is in private equity, and he exposed me to the space while I was still playing baseball. Him and his brothers, they actually have a growth equity shop here in Tampa. You know, but he played quarterback at Florida State, Drew Weatherford.
Okay, yeah.
You know, I know saying Florida State kind of makes me sick a little bit and queasy, but great human, great family. And he really has taught me a lot about the space. He's encouraged me to keep digging in. And so that's kind of how I found my way in.
But why finance? You said you always had this feeling you wanted to do finance. Why is that?
Oh, great question. Yeah, for me, well, it goes back to like being in college, towards the end of my college career. I always wanted to just be this, maybe immature, but ultra wealthy, right? A lot of these guys that were buying the baseball teams were in, you know, high finance, right? They were in some sort of hedge fund or PE group. And I've always been fascinated with money and how money, you know, operates. And so what happened really was when I got hurt, and when, as you know, and I'll go take a step back. When I was a young kid, I was always, what business can I do to make money? How can I do this? How can I leverage people's talent to earn something? So it's always been in my mind. But when I got hurt my junior year of college, going into my senior year, I was like, whoa, this baseball thing might not work out. If you get, you know, one more injury or something, you could be done. And so I was like, all right, I got to lean into this space a little bit more. And so I just really started consuming, you know, books on, you know, again, private investing, what to look for, how to build portfolios, and kind of grow in that manner.
What would you think about if you had NIL back when you were there? Especially you have this mind of trying to figure out how to create business and leverage it.
Oh man, it would have been a good and bad thing, probably. Yeah, well, you know, it's funny. I think it would have been hard. It would have prepared me for, you know, professional baseball and the larger contracts that you get, because, you know, you would have had a little bit of a taste of having some money to go, okay, well, that was dumb. I just blew that money on whatever. But it also, you know, would have gave you, you know, again, for me, I was a little fortunate. I you know, at 22 years old, I had a substantial amount of money versus, you know, being 18. So 4 years earlier, I could have had some money, but I think, yeah, and a lot of these guys are making a lot of money as an 18-year-old. And I wish that, it's tough to tell them, nobody's going to listen, right? I get it. Like I was in their shoes, but it's like, man, great. You just made an extra couple 100,000 or $1 million. Just put it away. Forget you even have it. Forget about it. Don't even think about it.
You hear about the athletes who don't touch their paycheck. You know, they just spend all their other stuff, or they don't touch their other stuff. They just kind of use their, and then you hear the others who have to sell a championship ring down the line, which is pretty sad.
Yeah, it is sad. And I mean, sometimes you see, you know, I mean, 9 out of 10 times probably they're selling a championship ring because they're like, yeah, you know, I need the money. Yeah. But I think there are some times where people are like, what am I doing with this? Like, it just sits in a drawer. Somebody else is going to get more enjoyment out of it. And So I think sometimes that may happen, but yeah, to your point, I mean, you do hear about that, and probably more frequently than we'd like to.
You're at a pretty good level now in the finance world. I don't know how they judge that, but how long did it take you to sort of get where you were at? Was it harder than you thought it would be? What was hardest about it? Maybe what was easier than you thought with people saying as you're working on this? And you're still, I assume, not where you need to be
Yeah.
as an advisor or someone who's working in the space.
Yeah, I mean, so it is harder to get in the space than I thought. Again, in this, in the buyout world, it's challenging. It took longer than I thought. And because there for me it was, the typical route into the world that I'm in is you go to investment banking right after you get your MBA. And you go to investment banking somewhere, most likely in New York, and you grind for 3-4 years, and then you get into private equity. Not having that background and knowing that I couldn't go do investment banking as a 31-year-old who just got out of professional baseball and has 4 kids, or 3 kids at that time. It just wouldn't. It's just not that easy, right? And uproot your family and move. And so I had to kind of do it, more of an unconventional way. Just really hanging around the hoop, learning from my friend Drew, being introduced to the people that he knew, and adding value to groups that I was connected to, and frankly, not really getting paid for it. Right? Kind of almost interning in some ways. Which was humbling but a great experience, right? Like you start to learn a lot, and you start to believe that, oh, I can do this. And, I was fortunate, a group hired me, and yeah, it's been a fun experience so far.
Well, to put it let's put this in baseball terms. It's sort of the analogy that you just sort of gave is, if I get drafted by the wrong team, I might sit on the bench and never play, but I could be a free agent, go to the right team. I'll sit behind whatever I'll learn because I'm not in the starter room. And that could be much better. Even if you could get a little bit more money to start. I always talk about the value of an internship, even if it's unpaid, if it's the right internship, rather than going to get an internship that might be paid. That's just, what are you doing? You're getting people coffee and you're doing mindless work. You're not learning anything. So there's value to who you're with. It shouldn't always be about how much money am I making, especially at the beginning.
Yes.
Once you've established yourself in an industry, then your value is, should be accounted for.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes, we get knotted up and get short-sighted on just this dollar amount, when it's like putting the work in now and getting the wisdom and knowledge now, it's going to pay in dividends years down the road. Right. And to your point, it's like, I'd rather make nothing and learn a whole bunch than make 40 grand and not really learn anything.
Yeah. I think a lot of people make that mistake.
Yeah.
Especially in the beginning when you're trying to find a job. Just get into what you want to get into and figure it out from there, instead of just holding out for this job that pays X amount of dollars. And very likely it's not going to be your last job if it's your first job.
Yeah, that's true too.
You brought it up, so I'll ask you here. Can this job get you to that rich status that you want? Do you still have a hunger for that? Are you thinking about what's going to take me to that?
Yeah, that's
obviously you're doing well, just knowing where you're at.
Yeah.
Another level. Can you get there where you're at, or do you have to try and find something else?
No, yeah, definitely I can get there where I'm at. And in this space and in the industry that I'm in, this is, you could get where, those old dreams and goals that I used to have, I could get back there. But sometimes, you also realize that, it's like shooting for the stars. If I land on the moon, I think I'm still doing okay. And so it's kind of more of the mentality I take now, rather than how I used to just be like, if I don't hit the stars, I failed. Right. Like, more when I played baseball. And it's more of trying to do things from a perspective where, yes, you're still all in. Yes, you give it everything you got and you work really hard, but also being mindful about, again, I got 4 kids, I've got a wife. Like, I take my kids to baseball and cheerleading and golf, and I do those things with them. And, and I've always just been, since I've had, the kids, it's just, hey, if I lose out on a deal because, whatever, because I had to take my daughter to cheerleading or kids playing baseball, so be it. There'll be another deal. There'll be another opportunity. There won't always be another time when my kid is 10 years old going to baseball.
Yeah, it's hard. I have this conversation with my friends all the time, though. It's hard to figure, like, you can't be at all of them. And, like, are they gonna care if you missed a regular season meaningless game? I'm trying to look back when I was playing basketball. I feel like my dad was at everything, but it's very possible he wasn't, and I wouldn't have cared because I knew the support he had. So it's a very tough balance.
Yeah.
Especially when you have 4 of them. And these days, like you said, everyone's playing everything.
Yeah.
There's soccer, and now you got lacrosse, and but it's fun to be able to be with them and still do your job, which might not have happened back in the day. Like my dad would commute to the New York City. He'd be up at 5 and be home at 9 until he just said, I'm going to do this on my own. And yeah, I might make less money, but I'm going to be around for the kids. It's a little bit different now. And it's probably easier now, especially with working from home.
Yeah. I think there's definitely, it is a little bit easier to have that balance in life. And again, like I still have trips and work trips and times where I am away and I do miss some of their games. But to your point, like the vast majority of their stuff I'm there for, and I think, maybe it becomes a problem when you're habitually gone and not there watching them play. But they know that, I coach them on every team. So it's trying to show up for them because there's always going to be, some people might disagree or whatever, but I think that there's always going to be opportunities to make money and make a living and have success in that, right? Like
I think so.
Regardless of how old you are, and who cares if you're 50 or 60, right? And in today's world, that's still pretty young. So I don't know. I think it's my family is like really important to me, and so we try to prioritize a lot of that.
How good are your kids at sports, and how difficult it is for you as a coach who's been, or even just a parent who's been to the top, to not. For some kids, it's recreation. For some, it's like we're building towards something. Even if that goal is I want to play high school, and that's it. That's not always the easiest too. And some people, not everyone's cut out for it. So, how is it for you trying to navigate through that, being where you've been and coaching your kids?
It's not easy. I will tell you that. I'm one of those. Yeah, it's just unfortunately it's not easy. It doesn't matter if it's golf, whatever sport they're doing. And I'm just in some ways I am hard on them because I'm like, man, if you're going to spend the time out here and take your time, the coach's time, my time, like do it right. Do it right. Do it 110%. Do it how you're going to do it in the game. And let's focus on doing the right reps, not just doing it. Not just if we're out at golf, doing golf practice or whatever, not just swinging to swing. Have an approach. Know where you're lined up every time. Take a breath. Same thing with baseball. And so some of that's hard. Like my one son, we play. I got twin boys, and so they play pretty much everything together. And we play flag football. Like I said, I wasn't really. I mean, I was okay at football in high school, but it was never really my thing. But my one son, he likes playing wide receiver, but the kid can't catch. So I'm like, look, man, you want the ball, and he's fast as lightning, so he's open all the time. But I'm like, dude, they're going to stop throwing the ball to you because you can't catch. If you want to catch and you want to keep getting the ball, let's work at it, right? And so we'll sit there for 10 minutes, and I'll fire footballs at them. Use your hands, not your body. Use your hands. And Like this is you have to do those things to get better. And so that from that perspective, it is tough for me. But I'm also really, encouraging, and I love seeing them play, and I
Yeah,
like,
you want to enjoy watching them just because
yeah,
it's fun. Even if I just enjoy watching my nieces and nephews play just because it's fun to watch and not always having to be like competitive. But I
yeah,
agree with you. If you're gonna want to compete and you're there for that reason, then you have to be. It's a different experience than if you're just saying, "Hey, I want to find an activity for my child to do because I need them to be a part of a soccer team, and so they can
yeah.
run around and kick, and it almost doesn't matter."
It's a switch in me, and it's a switch in my wife too. Like we're both the same way. It's hard for us not to. Again, we're ultra competitive, but we don't beat the kids up. We're just like, look, man, we're gonna do it. Let's just work at it while we're here, right? And you can have fun at the game. So, but we have a good time with it.
How good was she as a you said pole vaulter?
Yeah, she was All American pole vaulter at UF. I think she still has the. Oh, she's gonna kill me. I can't remember if it's indoor or outdoor record for height. I don't know. It was like 13.9 or something, or 13.11. Yeah, decent amount for. And she still holds the record, actually.
I mean, track could be the Gators' best sport in
Yeah,
history. That might be the best sport that we have, and that's saying a lot because we've done pretty good in some other.
yeah. Our track team is unbelievable. Mouse has done a phenomenal job over there. I mean, these guys and girls win season in and season out, year in and year. It's incredible what they have built over there.
Yeah, I was so heartbroken and disappointed when I think he tripped in the Olympics, and you build 4 years and you're working, and for that to happen, it's when you're an individual or mostly individual, it matters so much what you do as opposed to you playing in the Olympics. I mean, if you did poorly, it doesn't mean the team's out.
Right. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, track is such an individual sport, just like swimming. I mean, golf, like all eyes are on you, right? If you don't perform, you lose.
I was at the World Baseball Classic final here with Japan and U.S., and it
Oh
was
yeah.
Otani pitching against Trout. I mean, the game was pretty good, but that moment right there that's a top sports moment for me. Watching Otani just take it to Trout. I think who knows with the injury now. Otani, I think, has the ability to be maybe the best player that ever played. I know that's saying a lot. If he can pitch and hit,
Yeah.
hitting, he's not going to. He'll be a great player, and either way, and even if he pitched, but it's incredible. I think it was before you. One of my favorite players of all time for the Gators was Brad Wilkerson, who
Oh
was
yeah.
a tremendous hitter and pitcher. Played a
Yeah.
little bit in the pros, right? I think for the Expos.
Yeah.
How much do you follow baseball now outside of like college, the Gators baseball, and major leagues?
Yeah. I mean, we follow both, right? Like, we're fairly involved with the Gator baseball team, and love what Sully's done there at the university. He's done a great job. Um, so we still stay in touch with the program there. Still stay in touch with old teammates and old coaches of mine. And then the pro baseball, there's so many games, as you know.
It's too many.
Yeah, for us, playoffs come. That's kind of when we, start checking in and watching a little bit more. We'll go to a few games during the year. We'll take the kids to, like we went to the Phillies Rays game over 4th of July. Great experience. The kids love it. And
Tampa needs more support, though. It's what's going to happen with them. The craziest stat of this, I think the top 6 records in Major League Baseball were like 1-12 in the playoffs, and all the favorites are out.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you had the Rays, you had the Orioles. They're both out, and yeah, I don't know what it's going to take. I think St. Pete's a great little spot, right where the stadium's at. It's starting to really boom. I just it's one of those. I don't know. It's hard. I think you'd get more attraction to the game if it was in Tampa.
Yeah.
This is just my opinion. I mean, some people, obviously a lot of people would disagree, but I think that there's more, you could have more corporate sustainability here in Tampa, right? You can have corporate suites that get sold out. And there's just, I think it's just easier for people if it's here, maybe by the hockey arena or an Ybor. It's just easier for people to get around to.
Yeah, I like the area. I think, I don't know, it's not that far. Like when they moved the Marlins all the way down to Miami, for me that's a big difference because I was a half hour, now I'm like an hour, and the traffic's much worse. But
Yeah.
it's hard to get a fan to all these games. Even if I was going to go to more games, maybe I'm going to 5 games, 8 games a year.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of games, and I'm for. I think they should be playing less games, but they're never going to do it because of the money. And now I think there's value to sticking with that number so you can sort of compare what everyone else is doing. All of a sudden you start playing less games, and now you got to worry about who's the home run champion and all of this. Not that matters that much, but for I don't want to say I'm a purist, but because the next question I'm going to ask you certainly shows that I'm not. I feel like. Do you think they'll have a team in Tampa, St. Pete in 5 years, or do they have to move it? Are they going to build something? Or
No, I think they'll build something in one of the
they'll
places.
still be there?
Yeah, I think there'll be a team here. I just don't know. I mean, there's a lot of talk now that there is going to be one, like agreements have been signed, one in St. Pete, but who knows? Is it a ploy to get them to move to Tampa somehow? Who knows? They've been going back and forth over this for the last few years, so it's hard to say.
Yeah. Well, speaking of not being a purist or whatever, we do a lot of work with the Savannah Bananas. Have you followed them at all? What do you think about that experience? And
yeah, I followed them a little bit. I was a little disappointed when they were in Tampa. They didn't reach out to me and ask me to come play on one of the teams.
Well, they're going back again, I think.
Oh yeah,
Tampa. I'll put in a good word.
Yeah.
That would be fun to play. They've had, yeah. Banquio played, and
I had other friends that played in it. I mean, they were here in Tampa. I could have been a call away, but anyway, no, I think what they've done is really unique, right? Like, hey, man, I don't think it takes away anything from professional baseball.
Yeah.
I think that these guys have created a niche that brings people out to a ballpark, get the ballpark experience with a little more entertainment and action, and it's exactly what it is. It's entertainment, right? They're just doing it on the baseball field, and it's a very engaging experience for people. It seems like. So yeah, I don't have anything. And the guys that are playing are clearly talented.
Yeah, they're not bad athletes. I mean, they won their league a few years before they decided to not play. I think it's I love what they're doing, and I think as they evolve, we were talking about with the Harlem Globetrotters. The good thing about the Bananas, I think Jesse even might have mentioned it this week on one of his things, is that it's not fixed. They lost more games than they won.
Yeah.
I think as a person, because I saw the Globetrotters not that long ago, knowing that the game isn't fixed adds to, for me, for the entertainment. Not that I care who wins necessarily.
Yeah.
I think we all root for the Bananas.
No, I think they've done a great job. And it's fun, and they've created a cult following. And hey, man, I'm all for anything that brings joy and happiness and energy to people, right? I think it's great.
And I think also you're just adding to more people who can play baseball who want to play but they can't get to that level, which there's a lot of people like that, and they might get a whole league. Who knows? There could be a whole league and not just these 3 teams playing.
Yeah.
Your career ended, injuries were a big part of it. Do you ever think about what you would have done if, let's say, it never happened in the major leagues? Like, would finance have been that thing, and would you be able to get where you're at now if you would have started that way? Well, how about, do you ever think about that? And what do you think would have happened?
Yeah, no, I never think of it that way. I always think about, man, I still could be playing if I didn't get hurt. Because, like, one of my roommates in the fall league and guys that I played with on Team USA in college, like Max Scherzer, I mean, he was my roommate in the fall league coming up. We were, so good friends, and Michael Brantley's still playing, and so I'm like, man, these guys are my core group of guys that I played with, and I'm like, I could have still been playing. So I never look at it the other way. Man, I don't know, because at that time I didn't know anybody in the finance world that would have said, hey, go get your MBA at a Harvard or a Yale or Cornell or somewhere, and then go get it, or Wharton, and go get into investment banking, and then you could get it. I didn't have any of that at that time. Not to say I wouldn't have found my way into this world, but yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know that answer.
And if you had to go outside of finance, what's something that you think you would take a stab at?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about going back to professional baseball and like becoming, trying to become a GM. I do. I love baseball, and I mean that you get kind of the best of both worlds, right? You get baseball, and then you get this business side of it as well. And I always thought that would have been fun. So maybe going, that route in some shape or fashion. Yeah, it's hard to tell, because I think at that time, well, I guess if I just finished college and didn't go pro baseball, I might have found a way to stay in college, because we didn't have any kids, my wife and I, and we would have been flexible to move wherever we wanted. And who knows, maybe I would have just done college coaching, or maybe try to be an athletic director at a university or something. I'm not sure. It's hard to say.
All of it would be fun. It's a kind of fun to look back and think.
Yeah.
What you would do. I always say, I had this conversation, like, if I could go back to any age, not redo it, but sort of, hey, some new things, or you're in better physical shape to do certain things. Like, I would go back to probably freshman in high school and want to start. Is there an age that you think you would go back to with the knowledge that you know? And I'm not talking about Back to the Future where you can bet on all the winning things, but
yeah. I mean, I probably would have went back to, call it, sophomore year of high school.
Yeah.
And I would have just told myself not to put so much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the game. Like, I think there was times in my life where I did enjoy the game, but there was also times in my life where I was so hard on myself. It was probably,
when you're at that high level, it has to be that way, because otherwise you can't. There's just so few people in this world who have the talent that don't have to go through that.
Yeah,
I would think, to make the major leagues, or even the professionals in anything. I would think that's the case. What would you change in baseball? You can make a rule change. What would you like to see changed?
Oh, good one. Oh man, I think the pitch clock has sped up the game a decent amount. Probably one of the things, and I don't know how it works out, but instead of a 9-inning game, you make it 7 innings. And maybe instead of playing 162 games a year, you do drop it down. Maybe you drop it down more like a minor league season. That's 140. Because, I mean, you're already playing 20, 25 games in spring training. Then you add in, playoffs if you make the playoffs. And it seems like now there's a lot of teams that make the playoffs because of this wild card. So I think for longevity of players and speed of game, right, you cut down on some of that stuff. And it's like, I always find it interesting. I'm like, who came up with 162 games? Why 162 games?
What was it before? 154, or when Ruth was playing? I mean, to just add 8 games.
Yeah, I mean, even then, why 150? Right? Like, I should be able to know who the best and most talented teams are generally within 100 to 125 games.
The crazy thing about they're all going to win a third and they're all going to lose a third, and then what happens in that middle third is what happens. There's not.
So, but yeah, I mean, again, I don't. I think finding ways, which they've done, to keep the game moving a little quicker, and so you get more people engaged in it.
Do you like the shift? Them being able to do the shift on defense. What do you think about that?
Well, you mean not being able, like not being able to?
Should they be able to play wherever they want, or should there be constraints on? Like in the major leagues, you think a guy should be able to hit it there, but look at some of these pitchers; it's not so easy.
Yeah, part of me says, I mean, a lot of me says, yeah, they should be able to play wherever they want, right? And if we're a hitter, that's on you, man. Don't hit it there. What do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
But also, the game has evolved in such a way that, and again, it's runs put people in seats. Home runs put people in seats. Like, when you've got the shift, man, it's tough to get it through there if you're a dead pull hitter. I mean, these guys are so good playing defense. It's like nothing gets through. So I see both sides of it. I feel, though, that they probably, hey, man, I should be able to play where I want to play.
Yeah, I get both sides on that.
Yeah.
Who's the best player you've played with and also played against?
I mean, I played against Mike Trout. I mean, he was obviously early on was just unbelievable. Just a guy that could do everything. It was really incredible to see. I really enjoyed playing against Miguel Cabrera. The Tigers were in our division, so you got to see them a lot. And I don't know what he was thinking on the inside or how he was really feeling, but on the outside playing baseball, it was like he had so much joy being out on the field, and he was just a magician with the bat. Yeah. So talented. I loved watching him hit. He
was one of my favorites when he was on the Marlins, and got rid of everyone. But who has the nastiest stuff that you ever faced?
Ooh, I would say, Doug Fister.
Fister?
I don't know if that name rings a bell. Yeah. But Doug Fister, for some reason, he's 6'6", 6'7", tall, lanky guy. And he would throw a two-seamer, he would throw a cutter and a slider, and his cutter and slider always looked the same to me. So I'd swing at them, and then his two-seam looked similar to that, other than it just came in and broke in on my hands. I hated facing him.
I used to like to watch I just forgot his name. Who was the guy on the Yankees who had like the
Mariano Rivera?
No, not Rivera. He was like a setup guy. His stuff would just like move. I just had his name in my head. Now I'll remember it.
David?
Nelson. Jeff Nelson.
Oh, Jeff Nelson. Okay.
Yeah, he had some nasty stuff. Just watching it go, like, how do you even? It's crazy to think you got to get up there and try and hit one of these things. And these are the best hitters in the world.
Yeah.
But when you connect, it's like last night, man, the Phillies game. They just first two batters, they connected.
Yeah, they did. They ambushed those guys, the first couple hitters.
Yeah. Give me someone who's not in the Hall of Fame who you think should be. I have a really mixed feelings about the Hall of Fame. I feel like once you're done, your stats are your stats. If you didn't make it today, why make it 10 years from now? But is there someone out there you think just really should be in that's not, that comes to mind besides Pete Rose?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously, I think he should be in. I don't, that's just me, and we could have a discussion about that too. I was fortunate enough, I'm good friends with Fred McGriff, and so I was fortunate enough to go up and watch him get inducted this year. So if we had this conversation, 5-6 months ago or a year ago, I would have said Fred. He should be in. But I think guys for consideration, right, are Gary Sheffield, Barry Bonds, and I know you got guys that don't want that because of the steroid issue, but Barry Bonds would have been in the Hall of Fame regardless of steroids, in my opinion.
I agree with that.
Such an unbelievable player. It's sad that he's been tarnished because of the steroids. Not just him. There's a lot of guys, but he just was.
Those guys also, they have like a not so good reputation of just not being a friendly or nice person, and I think that also goes against it.
Well, I think that goes against you too, right? Because the first ballot, right, it's the writers. So it's the writers are making these choices, right? And so there's probably a little bias from these people. Like if Chef was a jerk to somebody or multiple people, which he might likely have been, they're going to be like,
yeah, if you're on the edge, they can do that. Certain people you can't.
Certain people you can't.
But now with the asterisks on all that other stuff, you're like, all right, that's my reason.
It's like, he was a jerk to me. I'm not going to vote for him. And it happens enough. And, hopefully this year we'll get to see our friend Lou Piniella go in as a manager.
That would be cool. I got do you keep anything from your playing days? I'm a big memorabilia guy, obviously, with my company. This was the first ball at the new ballpark in the Gators. It was a home run.
Wow.
Hit and home run in the new Gators Stadium.
That's awesome.
This one. And then this, I was at a game and got Pete Alonso to sign with Tim Tebow when they played a minor league game.
Wow.
Do you have anything from your playing days or anything that maybe you grew up with that's a house on fire, everyone's out, you take, what do you grab?
Oh man, that's a good one. I do have a bunch of stuff from my playing days. I'll say that. Like, I always thought that I would be hanging this stuff up somewhere, and I never have, right? One of the things I did, one of my friends, my buddies, Chad, he would, all my baseball cards, he would go buy copies, or he would go buy my baseball cards, go get them all PSA graded, and cataloged them all for me in a Pelican briefcase.
That's awesome.
So I have every card pretty much made of myself, except for some of the one-of-one refractors and things like that. And he recently, we finally saw each other again, and he brought them with him, and I recently got them. And gave them to my kids so they could see, but that's one thing that's pretty cool. All the different cards that were made of me and stuff. But I don't know if I have that one thing.
Did you collect cards when you grew up?
What's that?
Did you collect cards when you were growing up?
I did for a little bit. Yeah, I did for a little bit. And I've never been a collector of things. Like, I've just always, I just never been a collector. So I don't know. I mean, I'd probably go back for my bronze medal. That's the only thing I don't know if I could replace.
Yeah. That would be awesome. I collect everything, but I get tickets graded. This is the Edinson Volquez no-hitter. That was the reason why I started Ticket Time Machine. And then this is a Tebow Promise stub that he
Oh, wow.
Which is, so I don't get cards graded because I don't collect cards these days. It's back in the day I would have, I had 100 Ruben Sierra 87 Topps cards that are worth nothing now. We thought these cards would be worth a ton of money. And I still got some stuff that's worth money, but it's a different world, the collecting day.
Yeah. I like the tickets and stuff like that. I think because it's capturing this experience that you actually had, right? Like, I have all my first game tickets from my call up, a couple like opening days and the Olympic tickets. Like, I have some of those tickets that I haven't sent off and got graded or anything.
Those are awesome to have. I mean,
they're still all sitting in a box in the case. And up in the attic.
And that's part of what we're trying to do also is like, if you played in high school, maybe it was your first varsity game, wouldn't you like to have a ticket that said you play, even if they don't have tickets? Just something like this that said, hey, I played in this game. I have newspaper clippings from when I played basketball.
Yeah.
It's just cool to have. It's only worth stuff to you. It doesn't have to be worth to everyone else. I think these days everything's trying to figure out what can we do that's worth to everyone else, and then maybe these one of ones that's like really worth a lot that you can jump on. But
Yeah.
think about more of the fan and the families of people who would want to have something if that was, when their family member is playing their first game ever now, and if you play for the Yankees, you can't get one.
Yeah.
They won't print it anymore.
Oh no, everything's all digital.
Well, the Yankees won't. There's a few ballparks that definitely won't print. It's a difficult task to get tickets these days anyway.
Yeah, I mean, in 20 years, people, you send it to your kids or grandkids or something, and they're gonna be like, "What is this?"
Well, those tickets that you have are great. The first game and the Olympics.
Yeah,
that's something I definitely would love to have if I was someone who played, or even just the first game that I went to. I'd love to have. I don't even remember it.
Yeah,
but if I had it, I certainly would cherish it as something like this. I'd say my first game.
Yeah, no doubt.
Field of Dreams, my favorite sports movie, my favorite baseball movie. What are some movies that you like in the baseball? The favorite?
Yeah, Major League is probably number one.
I like Major League. The second one too is pretty good.
Yeah, they're both good. I just really
the first one was good.
I like that. I mean, obviously the Sandlot.
Sandlot's up there for me.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Did you ever play overseas? I watched like Mr. Baseball or Mr. 3000.
Yeah.
And one with Bernie Mac. Those were pretty good movies. Entertaining.
Yeah. So I never played overseas in a league over like in Japan. I mean, I played winter ball down in like Venezuela and Mexico and stuff like that, but never a season like that in Asia. But I think it would have been great. I mean, especially Japan. Because I played over in Japan on Team USA, the collegiate Team USA, the one I was telling you with. We had Max Scherzer. I mean, our team was loaded. It was ridiculous. But we got to play over in Japan, and that was a great experience.
I went to a Japan baseball game. It's a fun experience. I've also been to soccer. I haven't been to basketball, but baseball, if you can get out to Japan and see a baseball game, it's very entertaining.
100%. It is so much different over there than it is here. Everybody here in the States is real quiet. Over there, I mean, they're beating on drums. They've got chants, and it's a whole different experience.
We're getting close to the end here. With regards to what you look for in a company, how can people what should people be looking for if they wanted to help you, or if they wanted to introduce you to someone, or help someone get to that level that you can take them to? What's something that is just like easy, low-hanging fruit that would come to someone's mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything, anybody that's looking to have an exit, right, and their company is doing 10 million in revenue or greater, that's usually a good first key indicator. Maybe that maybe they're in their retirement age, right? They've had the company for 20 years, 30 years. They're tired, man. They don't want to grow it anymore. They've done everything. They've built it and grown it. And they've made their money and they're happy. And now they just kind of want to have a sales event, right? And make some capital and move on.
How long is that process? I mean, obviously it changes, but on average,
as far as like getting somebody, hey, yeah, I want to sell, to getting them closed. Oof. I mean, it varies, but it could take, I mean, it's 6 months to a year.
And what percentage do you guys have to hit, or what's the industry percentage on what you do hit to something that was a successful transaction?
Yeah. So typically you're looking to have like you're looking to have a minimum of a 25% to 30% IRR or better. And then, we use this metric, MOIC, money on invested capital. So you're looking the industry standard is about a 2.8, 2.85, I think, of multiple on your money. So if you invested, $100,000, you should be getting back 285,000 on average.
All right.
And that's generally a pretty good return.
Baseball is such a numbers game, so it is interesting that you're into the finance. Like, you strike out or get out 7 out of 10 times, you're still a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
If you play long enough. It's some of these weird rules that can, be real successful. Even the best teams are winning 60% of their games.
Yeah.
Not a big difference between that, first place, and that's why you see a team like the Orioles come up, you just improve a little bit, and now all of a sudden you're on your way. Really appreciate your time here today. I could talk Gator baseball for hours and hours. I was lucky enough to go to Omaha one time. It was the year after they won it. So tough to get there and to win. So heartbreaking. I was hoping to go this past year. They were an inch away from winning.
Oh, I know.
An inch away. If that Langford ball is they win that game, and they most likely win the next game.
That's right. I agree. It's over after that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Check out the website a111.com. Connect with Matt on LinkedIn, or find his content on Instagram. If you have any questions about what he's doing now in the finance world, or any Gator related questions as well. Wish you luck with the kids and all of their sports and the finance. And we'll talk to the Bananas about getting you into Tampa. Hopefully get to see. Are you playing, or do you know about the Gator golf tournament that's coming up next month in Gainesville with the Gator Boosters? I'll send you some information on it.
Send me some information. I actually host a golf tournament here in Tampa at Old Memorial. This will be my third year, but it's during rivalry week, and it's November 20th and 21st. But it's Florida versus Florida State, and we have 32 Gators and 32 Seminoles play against each other. We raise a little money for both schools. Kind of a third goes to UF's booster, a third goes to FSU's, and then the remaining third goes to the team that won. It goes to their boosters. Cool. So it's a lot of fun. We've had a great time doing that. So yeah,
I'll send you. We have a friend, Danny Dichter, who played in South Florida.
Okay.
Pitched for the Seminoles and got injured and stopped playing, but he ended up transferring to Gainesville and finishing there, not playing, but so he's on both. But he's a Gator fan. He's full on.
Okay.
Gator. It's weird to have that be your number one rival, and you play him 3 times, 6 times a year.
Yeah.
Well, it's not the same, or a midweek game. It's not the same as if I feel like we play Miami a lot more in the playoffs in the postseason than we do Florida State.
Yeah. Somehow we always get stuck with Miami being in our regionals.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
It's always joy. Like, how did Mike Martin not win a College World Series? Got there, so it's so hard to win.
It's so hard to win. I don't know.
But you would think it's like the Atlanta Braves. Like, you got there so many times, you got to figure you can win once.
Yeah, you're right.
That's just another Gator joke we could have on.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll be back at the College World Series this year.
And
hope to see you at an event sometime soon.
Really Sounds good. Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thanks a lot.